There comes a quiet yet sacred moment when you no longer ask, "How do I get what I want?" but begin to wonder, "Why hasn't what I want arrived, even though I've tried with everything I have?" And it's precisely in that place that an invisible door opens, not outside, but within your consciousness. And if you're perceptive, you'll notice something that changes the entire game. What you thought you had to attain has actually been there all along, simply waiting for you to remember how to use it. The only thing standing between you and what you desire is not distance, not time, not conditions. It's the illusion that you don't already have it. The more you strive to achieve it, the more you reinforce the belief that it is missing. The more you affirm, "I'm on the way there," the more you place yourself outside the destination. The universe does not respond to words or wishes, it responds to frequency. And frequency emanates from a state of being, not from pleading. This is a paradox full of power. You don't need to conquer reality, you just need to harmonize with it. When you vibrate at the same frequency as what you desire, nothing can keep it from coming to you. But when you emit the signal of lack, of waiting, of uncertain hope, you are broadcasting the frequency of not yet, and that is exactly what gets mirrored back to you. I spent many years in a state of seeking success, love, clarity, peace. Every time I enrolled in a new class, read a new book, wrote down a new affirmation, I believed, maybe this is the final missing piece. But as time went on, the results still didn't come as I had hoped. There were moments I sat in silence, so disappointed I no longer had the energy to positively try. And in that very moment, something unexpected happened. I stopped trying. I stopped reciting affirmations. I stopped begging for anything. I just became still. And in that stillness, I heard something the noisy years had made me miss. You lack nothing. You're just pretending to forget. That sentence didn't come as a sound, it came as a wave of deep understanding. Like walking into a dark room and, instead of searching for the light switch, realizing the light is emanating from within your own body. You don't need to turn anything on because you are the light. And then, everything changed. Not because I did something new, but because I stopped doing the old. I stopped emitting the frequency of fear, of lack, of not yet. The universal key, the so-called universal key, is not found in action, but in state. Not in textbooks, but in the deep layer of presence. You don't need to learn more, prove anything, only return to the original truth that you are always connected, always have, always are. Imagine you are wearing a special pair of glasses. These glasses are tinted blue, so you see the world in blue. No one needs to change the world for you to see a different color. You just need to remove the glasses. Those glasses are the limiting beliefs you've worn for so long you've forgotten you're even wearing them. I'm not good enough. I have to try really hard. I'm not allowed to have what I want. These beliefs are neither right nor wrong, but they are filters, and you have the right to choose to remove them. And when you do, the world doesn't change, but the way you see the world does. And because you change frequency, the world must respond. This is a law, not a miracle. Just like gravity, it doesn't require your belief to work. The question isn't, how do I convince the universe to grant me something? But, what signal am I sending out? The universe doesn't require you to prove you're worthy. It only mirrors back the exact signal you're putting out. If you live in the belief that what you want is already yours, the universe has no choice but to align accordingly. But if you live in the state of waiting for it to happen, then you remain in the state of waiting. Recall a time you walked into a room and instantly felt someone's energy, even before they said a word. Some people bring peace just by being present. Others make you anxious, even while smiling brightly. What you're sensing is frequency, not language, and so does the universe. You don't need to shout out what you want. You only need to become it. Not pretend, not imagine, but know. Know the way you know you're breathing. Know the way the sun rises every morning without confirmation, without justification. The universal key has no shape, no sound. It is the silent shift from lack to sufficiency, from begging to being, from waiting to knowing, from the seeker to the one who remembers they have always had. And the miracle is this: when you truly enter that state, you no longer need that thing to come and it arrives. Not because you want it to, but because you've stopped radiating the energy that keeps it away. You don't need to find another method. You don't need to master another technique. You only need to remember what you've always known. And when you remember, reality must change, because it has no choice but to follow you. Not because you force it, but because you've become someone reality cannot help but respond to. That is the moment all doors will open without you knocking, because when you become the one who holds the key, you are no longer locked out of anything, and there is no longer any reason to search for what you've always carried within you. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right, and yet the results remained silent? Waking up early, meditating, writing affirmations, keeping your thoughts positive, trying not to doubt, and still it feels like everything is at a standstill, unmoving, as if you're speaking to the universe in one language, while it's waiting for something entirely different. I once lived in that very tug-of-war. The more I understood the law of attraction, the more mechanically I tried to apply it. In the morning, I'd stick goal images on the wall. At noon, I'd listen to meditation music to release energy. In the evening, I'd repeat affirmations like, "I am attracting good things." I thought that if I did it enough, consistently enough, the results would have to come. But reality deceives no one. It stood there unmoved like a wall, unshaken. And the strange thing was, the more positive I tried to be, the more exhausted I felt inside. After many times pushing myself to the limit, I began to realize it wasn't that I hadn't done enough. It was that the way I was doing it was radiating an energy completely opposite to what I desired. I was trying to be positive in order to escape a sense of unease within. I was trying to attract as if I didn't have the right to receive. And I was trying to prove myself to the universe as if the universe didn't already believe I was worthy. But the universe doesn't need convincing. It's not swayed by effort. It simply responds to the exact frequency you emit. And when you push too hard to make something happen, what you're actually sending out is not, "I have this, but I don't have this, and I'm lacking." Imagine someone frantically searching for their glasses, while the glasses are sitting right on top of their head. They tear through every drawer, call everyone for help, run around the house in a state of urgency. Sound familiar? Because that's how we often pray, set goals, dive into the self-development loop. That search, as enthusiastic as it may seem, actually comes from a state that forgets the truth. We already have what we need. We've simply forgotten how to see it. Effort creates tension, and tension always carries separation. Like someone swimming in the ocean, the more they thrash, the more they sink. But the one who knows how to relax floats naturally. Effort is not wrong, but effort from panic is the energy of fear. Effort from control is the energy of distrust. And it is those very efforts that inadvertently keep you away from what you desire. Some might ask, if I'm not supposed to try, then what do I do? Just sit and wait? No, what's being invited here is not passivity, but a kind of action that has no resistance. Action taken from peace, not from fear. Action as an expression of gratitude, not as a means to escape a sense of lack. I began to change everything with a single shift. I stopped doing things to achieve, and started doing them as if I had already received. I no longer meditated to attract peace. I meditated because I am peace. I no longer wrote affirmations to make something arrive. I wrote them because they are the truth I choose to live by. The result? It didn't come immediately, but I changed, and that very change began to realign everything. An unexpected phone call, a perfectly timed invitation. An opportunity appeared that I hadn't been chasing. I didn't attract them. They responded to a different version of me, the one who no longer emitted the signal of, "Please come," but lived in the state of, "Everything arrives at the right time." Perhaps you're standing right at this threshold. Maybe you've tried everything. Maybe you're tired of maintaining a state of positivity like a mask that must always smile. If so, this is a sincere moment to ask yourself, am I unconsciously emitting the frequency of lack, of panic, of needing to prove myself, even though outwardly I'm trying to be positive? If you're ready to stop the effort loop and step into a state of presence without resistance, leave a sign. A simple message in the comments like, "I'm ready," or even just the number 1. Not only to let me know you're here, which is deeply valuable to someone creating content like me, but also as a declaration to yourself that you've chosen to open a new chapter with the divine. We don't need to run anymore. Don't need to shout loudly for the universe to hear. Because the truth is, the universe has always been listening. All you need to do is change the channel. Shift from the frequency of effort to the frequency of being. From resistance to alignment. From lack to sufficiency. That's all it takes. And everything begins to change. Not because you force it, but because you've stopped holding yourself in the state of pushing away. The effort loop dissolves when you choose to be still, in the deep knowing that you don't need to become anything to be worthy. You have always been worthy. And now, you only need to live as if you know that's true. She had everything others envied. The spotlight, the applause, fame etched into magazine covers. Every achievement, every compliment, every shining trophy was neatly placed on a shelf as if they were bricks building a complete person. But no matter how many layers of light surrounded her, there was still something that couldn't be hidden, a subtle, persistent emptiness, like a sealed room with no echo. She used to believe that success was the cure, that if she had enough money, enough recognition, enough admiration, the insecurity would disappear. But insecurity doesn't stem from what's missing on the outside. It comes from a disconnection within, and you cannot use external glory to fill the distance between you and yourself. Every time she achieved something new, she would quickly set the next goal, not out of ambition, but because the feeling of wholeness always slipped away. Satisfaction barely brushed her fingertips before vanishing like dry sand between her fingers. She began to realize it wasn't that she hadn't succeeded enough, it was that she had never felt enough. The world teaches that you must have something to be valuable, but no one teaches that if you don't see your own worth from the start, no amount of success can give it to you. Everything simply reflects back what you already believe. If you believe you're empty, you will see emptiness even in a room full of flowers and praise. If you believe you lack, everything you achieve will merely be an attempt to escape that lack, and therefore it will never feel like enough. The truth is, the external world is just a reflection, a vast mirror, brutally honest. You cannot ask a mirror to smile if you are frowning. And you cannot expect a fulfilled world if inside you is a chaotic map. Everything is a reflection of what you carry not in your wallet but in your consciousness. She began to change not through action, but through listening. For the first time in years of chasing success, she didn't ask, "What do I need to achieve next?" But instead, "What am I believing about myself that keeps me running without rest?" That question, though gentle, unearthed deep things. She realized she had always believed that worth had to be proven, that if she stopped, she'd be left behind, that if she didn't do something great, she would be nothing. Those beliefs weren't written down. They didn't appear on affirmation boards or get formally taught. They were the result of childhood comparisons, praise that only came with high grades, silences interpreted as failure. And like any mirror, the world simply reflected those beliefs with chilling precision. She didn't abandon her career, but she began doing everything from a different place, a space no longer driven by a void needing to be filled, but by a flow wanting to expand. In that state, success was no longer a reward for sacrifice, but a natural consequence of wholeness. She no longer needed to chase the light because she began to shine from within. The emptiness didn't disappear overnight, but for the first time she no longer panicked when she felt it. She looked at it as a part of herself that once believed she had to become someone else. And when she stopped trying to become, she began to be. In that state, everything became unexpectedly light, not because there was less to do, but because there was no longer weight inside. The mirror was still there, but instead of trying to change the reflection, she adjusted her gaze. Instead of painting the surface to distract herself, she turned inward and asked, "Can I live as if I am already enough?" And every time she dared to say yes, the world responded with things she once thought impossible. What she discovered wasn't a new philosophy, but an old truth long forgotten. Nothing outside can fill the emptiness inside. Not money, not love, not achievements. But when you are full within, the world cannot help but resonate. This is not a formula, it's a law, and this law operates even before you understand it. She no longer needed to lay out a plan to prove her worth, no longer needed to count shares or compliments to feel valuable, no longer needed to measure herself against others to know where she stood. She only needed to look within, and every time she did, the mirror of life lit up with honesty, not decoration, not exaggeration, not avoidance. And like all mirrors, it didn't just reflect her, it invited her to become a clearer version of herself, not by adding more, but by removing expectations, removing the need for validation, removing the fear of not being loved. When she did that, something strange happened. The emptiness that once haunted her no longer frightened her. It became space to breathe, to listen, to create, to be present. And from that very space, the deepest things began to bloom, not from effort, but from permission. True success doesn't come to compensate. It comes as a reflection of someone who has stopped seeking something to complete themselves and instead lives as if they were never incomplete. And when that happens, the emptiness is no longer a crack, it is a gateway. No longer a fear, but the starting point of freedom. The world operates not by promises, but by principles. Light does not wait for approval to shine. A seed does not need a contract to sprout. A river does not ask permission to flow, and neither do you. You don't need to negotiate with the universe to live your full potential. You only need to understand the laws, not the laws of mankind, but the invisible ones older than any civilization, and as precise as the heartbeat of life itself. There are three principles that silently govern every miracle: resonance, certainty, and surrender. They are not taught in schools, not written into textbooks, but they are present in every phenomenon you call coincidence, miracle, or destiny. They do not arise from blind faith, but from the objective mechanics of energy. And once you begin to live in accordance with these principles, you no longer have to strive so hard to attain, because you've stepped into a flow where everything naturally finds its way to you. The first principle is resonance. The universe does not respond to your words, but to the frequency you emit. Every object, every emotion, every thought is a broadcast, and frequencies only attract what matches them. You cannot emit the frequency of lack and draw in abundance. You cannot radiate fear and receive peace. Frequency deceives no one. It doesn't care what you say. It only detects what you are. Resonance doesn't require you to be skilled, perfect, or to fake positivity. It only requires honesty with your current state. When you find yourself tense, strained, anxious, don't deny it. Don't try to positivize your emotions. Just pause and adjust your frequency. Breathe slower, speak less, take a step back. Each small act shifts the signal you are sending. The second principle is certainty, not arrogant confidence, but an inner state free from doubt. Just like you don't need anyone to guarantee that the sun will rise tomorrow, you simply know. That certainty is not hope. It's not forced belief. It's a kind of remembering. You remember that the universe is always precise, always syncing with your inner world. And because of that, when you choose to believe in an outcome, you don't wait for it to arrive, you live as if it's already real. Strangely enough, when you live in certainty, you don't need proof. You stop constantly checking whether it's happened yet, because you're no longer in the mindset of waiting. You are living in the presence of that thing already. And so the evidence begins to appear not to convince you, but to mirror you. The third principle is surrender. This is where many people misunderstand. They think surrender means giving up, that it means no longer wanting something. But the truth is the opposite. Surrender is not about abandoning your dreams, it's about releasing your grip. Like planting a seed in the ground, you don't keep digging it up to see if it's sprouting yet. You trust the soil, you trust time, and you allow the process to unfold. Surrender is ultimate trust in the intelligence of the flow. It is the end of control and the beginning of allowing. When you cling tightly to what you want, you unknowingly emit the frequency of fear, the fear that if you don't hold on, it will leave. But that frequency pushes it further away. When you relax, you send out the signal of someone who knows they lack nothing, and that is what draws everything toward you. These three principles don't work in isolation. They interweave like a rhythm, broadcast the right frequency, hold unwavering certainty, and release with trust. When you live in resonance, you feel light. When you live in certainty, you see clearly. When you surrender, you feel free. And when all three converge, reality cannot help but transform. I used to do everything by technique, counting affirmations, writing goals every morning, focusing on a clear mental image, but results only came when I shifted the vibration within myself, when I stopped performing positivity and began embodying it, when I stopped asking, "When will it come?" and replaced it with, "If it were already here, how would I live?" When I stopped controlling every detail and instead trusted that the universe knows a faster route than I do. From that point, the things I used to chase began to appear without pursuit. Doors opened, not because I knocked long enough, but because I stopped believing I was outside. And the most profound realization was this: I no longer needed the results to validate my worth. The state of resonance, certainty, and surrender was already the reward. Living by these invisible laws is not about following a formula, it's about choosing a different way of being, a way that is lighter, truer, more grounded. From that place, you don't need to chase wholeness, you become the signal that wholeness seeks out. This world is not against you, it is not ignoring what you desire. It is simply waiting for you to tune in to the right frequency. And when you do, you don't need to do much. You only need to be. That very presence is enough to shift the entire space you walk into. And if you are quiet enough to listen, you will notice these three principles are not in any book. They already exist in your breath, in the rhythm of your heartbeat, in the way your eyes hold someone else without words. Resonance, certainty, surrender, not as techniques to get something, but as the path back to what you've always been. And from there, everything begins, not because you demanded it, but because you've become someone who no longer needs to. There is a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from the body, but from the soul. A type of depletion that cannot be named, only felt in the late hours of the night, when all questions seem to collapse into a single sigh. Why hasn't anything changed? Why, despite doing everything I could, is the result still the same? It's the moment when despair no longer screams, it simply sits quietly beside you like an old acquaintance, familiar yet never truly welcomed. I've been in that state, a place where every effort seems meaningless, where you begin to doubt yourself, doubt your beliefs, even doubt the most sacred things. You've read enough books, applied every technique, maintained the right attitude, controlled every thought, and still, everything slips through your fingers, as if you're a magnet pulling, delay. And from that lowest point, something strange began. Not a miracle. Nothing new appeared, just an invisible shift inside. I stopped resisting my own emotions. I no longer forced myself to seem okay. I stopped reassuring myself in a strained, artificial way. I allowed myself to admit I was tired, I was sad, I was disappointed. And in doing that, for the first time in a long while, I felt real. We are taught how to pursue what we want, but rarely are we taught how to harmonize with it, and that is the fundamental difference. Pursuit comes from lack. Harmony comes from fullness. A person attracts what they desire, not because they need it, but because they have become the kind of place where that thing feels welcome to arrive. Inner magnetism is not an energy you forcefully emit. It is the invisible field created when you live in alignment with your axis. When you stop pretending to be strong, stop straining to achieve, and begin to become whole in a very quiet way, no need to display, no need to prove. When you live in your truth, you become light. And when you are light, you attract. Look at nature. Flowers don't race to bloom, yet bees still find them. A ripe fruit doesn't shout that it is sweet, yet all beings are drawn to it. The sun does not force anyone to revolve around it, yet the whole solar system humbly moves in rhythm, because there is a kind of force that says nothing, yet makes everything come closer, and humans can become that too. Natural attraction doesn't come from learning the right words to say, posting the right content, or appearing positive at the right time. It comes from a deep consistency between what you feel and what you radiate. When you no longer emit the energy of someone who needs to have in order to feel complete, but instead emit the energy of someone who is already whole and ready for more, the universe does not need to be convinced, it simply synchronizes. And what astonished me is that when you enter this state, you no longer need anything to come in order to validate that you're doing it right. Every moment within you becomes confirmation. Each breath no longer feels heavy. Each thought no longer feels unsteady. And change is no longer a goal, it becomes a natural consequence. Despair is what happens when you drift away from your inner axis, when you allow the